In the previous videos, we have seen how to use arithmetic operators and the relational operators in Python. In this video, we will see how to use the logical operators that are supported by Python. Actually, Python supports three different logical operators: AND, OR and NOT. AND and OR are used to connect two or more relational operators, whereas NOT is used to flip the result of the expression. Now let's see how you can use these operators in Python. So let A is 10, B is 20 and C is 30. So you can use these logical operators to connect two or more conditional operators. That is, to connect the relational operators, we can use these logical operators. So let's say, for example, I can use the relational operator greater than on the variables A and B, so which is returning a false value. So here you are checking 10 is greater than 20, which is false, so it is returning a false value. And similarly, I am going to check another condition, B is greater than C, where I am checking 20 is greater than 30, which is again a false, so it is returning a false value. So here I am checking only one of the conditions. Here A greater than B, I am checking either A is greater than B or not. And here I am checking B is greater than C or not. But to connect these two relational operators together, and these two relational operators need to be connected together. So in those kind of situations, I can use the logical operators. So consider this example where I am checking two conditions together. Here A is greater than B is one condition and B is greater than C is another condition. But I want to check together these two conditions. So in that case, to connect two or more conditions, I can use the logical operators. So here I am connecting these two conditions using the logical AND. So how this logical AND works is, so if these two conditions are true, then only this AND operator will return a true, otherwise it returns a false value. So consider this example here, A is greater than B is actually a false value and B is greater than C is also a false value. So because both are false, so this AND operator will again return a false value. So consider another example where I am checking A is greater than B and C is greater than A. So A greater than B is false, but C greater than A is true. So here this statement also returns a false value, as the operator AND returns a true value when all the conditions involved in the operation returns a true value. Here, though this condition is returning a true value, this condition is returning a false value. That is how it returns a false value. Consider another example, C is greater than B and C is greater than A. So 30 is greater than 20 and 30 is greater than 10. Both the conditions are true. In this case, so this statement returns a true value. So that is how the AND operator can be used to connect two or more conditions, and this operator returns a true value when all the conditions involved in the operation returns a true value, otherwise it returns a false value. So similarly, you can use the OR operator also to connect two or more conditions. So consider this example where I am using OR as a logical connector to connect these two conditions. A is greater than B, which is false. B is greater than C, which is again a false. So how this OR operator works is, when one of the condition is true among the conditions that are involved in the operation, if either of the condition is true, then this OR operator returns a true value. Otherwise, when all the conditions involved in the operation are false, then only it returns a false value. So consider this example here. So A is greater than B, false, and B is greater than C is also false. So because both the conditions are false, so the statement is returning a false value. So consider another example, A is greater than B or C greater than A. Here in this case, the first condition is false, but the second condition is true. To return the true value by the OR operator, it is enough to have one condition to be true. So here this condition is true, so the statement returns a true value. So that's how the OR operator can be used. So consider another example where I am checking C greater than B or C greater than A. So here in this case, both the conditions are actually true. So this OR and AND operators are also known as a short circuit logical operators, because in case of the OR operator, when the first condition is true, then it need not to check the second condition. That is, when you have multiple conditions involved with the OR operator, then whenever it sees the first true condition, then itself the result of the entire expression is reevaluated to true and stops checking the remaining conditions. So that's how it is known as the short circuit operator. Similarly, AND operator also works as a short circuit operator. So consider this example where A is greater than B is false and B is greater than C is false. For the AND operator to return a false value, it is enough to have one of these conditions as false. That is how when it sees the first condition as false, it need not to check the second condition. So when you have multiple conditions involved in the operation, then so whenever it sees the first condition that is false, then itself it returns the results of the operation as false without checking the remaining conditions. So that is how these two operators are known as the short circuit operators. In addition to these two operators, Python also supports one more logical operator, which is a NOT operator. NOT is actually a unary operator which flips the Boolean value of the expression. Say for example, so I am using the NOT operator with the true condition. Actually the condition here is true, so not true. It negates the true, that's how it is returning a false. So consider another example where I am applying a NOT on the false value which returns a true value. So here actually this is the expression which is actually true, but because you are applying a NOT on the expression, it returns a false value. Here in this case, the expression is false, but I am trying to negate the expression. So the NOT of false is a true value, hence it is returning a true value. So consider the example A is greater than B. A is greater than B, in our case it is false. When I apply NOT on this A greater than B, then it returns a true value. So the negation of this expression. First the expression is evaluated, and if the expression is evaluated to false, then the NOT operator returns a true. If the expression is evaluated to true, then NOT operator returns a false value. That's how you can use AND or NOT logical operators in Python. Now I hope after seeing this video, so you understand how to use the logical operators AND or NOT in Python. Thank you for watching this video.